which is a public hearing to discuss and review the Finance Committee's recommendation of the 2026 budget. And then after the hearing, this board will consider an appropriate motion for action. So I am going to open the public hearing on the Finance Committee's recommendation of the 2026 budget. If there is anybody in the audience that would like to approach and speak on behalf of the proposed 2026 budget, now would be the time. All right, one more opportunity. All right, hearing none, public hearing is closed. That will lead us into discussion from this board, the administrator, myself, and if need be, the treasurer on the recommended 2026 budget. Zeke, you want to say a couple things?
So one item, just of a matter of decorum, you heard about it from Fred Kohler. So there's one line item that is a recommendation that we placed in the budget as a recommendation of the DPW committee, not as a recommendation of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee just didn't get an opportunity to review that after they've done with their work. So a bit of a timing and sequencing thing, and that's the $70,000 for pipe heat 40 by 80 tent and associated concrete work for 10-foot park that we will use for this Christmas, New Year's, other events in the park, and the weddings in the park. Other than that, you're going to get your auditor, Kevin Krasinski, talking to you just a bit about your 2024 audited financial statements. There's nothing that's a significant deviation within this budget compared to previous years. This is all pretty straightforward.
Can I say something about the $70,000 you just spoke of? That money will also be recouped to the taxpayer through, let's just start with the 15% gross with Palmer's rental of that for a wedding or weddings. That is money that will be recouped. Won't happen immediately, but it will take hopefully a couple of years to pay that back to the taxpayer. But those are things I think Fred brought up are very important to make those events be what they can be in that space. And then to your point, Zeke, and to your credit, Michelle, and everybody in this office, the budget is not an easy thing to ever work on and get done. You guys did a phenomenal job. There's a lot of different individuals that have to play a role in that. There's a lot of different individuals that have a lot of different visions, and we all have to try to get into the same category to do what's best on the behalf of the taxpayer. And we had some very good meetings. We had some very hard meetings, but you guys presented a wonderful budget. This has been through finance repeatedly for the last 2.5, 3 months. I think it's a very good budget, and I am going to, obviously recommend that this board passes that. If there's any questions or discussion amongst this board, now would be that time.
Just a point of clarity on the $70,000 that's been input into the budget, and it doesn't show up tonight, but it's going to be.
It's in here. So it's in TID number 3 as a line item in TID number 3. So
Okay,
it's
great.
pulling from your TID fund balance.
Explain to me what that is and what we're pouring or what we're planning on pouring there as far as
So,
concrete.
On the south end of the park, one of the plan documents going back shows a concrete pad to form, conceptualized as a wood textured concrete pad, so that you got a solid surface and it doesn't just crush out the grass to be on it, and then a 40-foot by 80-foot high peak cathedral tent.
40 by 80 is the pad size.
Mike?
Slightly bigger.
Yeah.
Call it
That's
50,
the pad
50
size.
by 100,
Yeah,
5,000 square feet.
yeah.
Just doing some simple math.
Included in that number, Bob, are heaters. That's what that's in the wintertime.
I'm sorry, say again?
Heaters are included in that also to run that in the wintertime. We just put it all in one line.
There's winter conditions planned in that,
Yeah.
and that's gonna take place if the budget is approved when, soon?
Yeah.
We'll get the tent
The
now,
tent's coming.
and then the concrete work will take place this spring.
Did we take bids?
We haven't bid this out yet.
Okay, Alright, good. I mean, that number's exorbitant for a pad that size, especially if it's 4 to 6 inch thick. If it's got a thickened edge, I could see the cost being a little higher, but when that time comes and that gets bid, I'd love to see the bid opening.
Yeah.
So
No,
just,
I was gonna call you about it anyway.
yeah, keep me in the loop on that. 50 by 100 is a big slab, so there's gotta be some structural rebar added into it to keep its integrity over time. And are we gonna do a stamp texture on it, or?
That's what we talked about. We don't have it at that point of finish yet, right? This is something that was discussed at the staff level. Trustee Goldhammer's not here tonight to be able to articulate his positions on it, but, we had, Jared Fred Kohler talk about a private operator step up and say, hey, we're willing to take a crack at both, the Christmas event and New Year's. We've had conversations with one other local business owner that has expressed an interest in operating, within the park space, and so DPW committees indicated they want to RFP, proposals for different events.
Going forward.
Right.
Into 2026, because 2025 sounds like it's
Yeah, it's just too.
the operators
too tight.
chosen essentially.
Right.
So there was no RFP process for that
No,
leading
sir.
up to now, not enough time.
Not enough, not enough time.
But there were other applicants that showed interest.
There were other parties that showed interest.
Okay. Yeah, just keep me in the loop on that. I'd like to see that bid opening, because it sounds like a fat budget number for what I would deem a reasonably sized slab.
That included the tent, the heaters.
Oh, that includes the
Yeah,
tent?
it's everything all in to bring that thing about.
Got it. Okay, alright, that makes a little more sense. A tent that size is probably 20 grand on its own.
I figured about $8 a square foot for the concrete, just a rough number.
$8? Okay, so that's fairly reasonable in today's standards.
Yeah, it was
Alright.
just starting point, this is really new, sort of new.
Gotcha. Thank you. Is now the time to ask questions regarding the budget that are open-ended, or at least when I'm looking for clarity before we move into an approval situation?
Absolutely.
So, I have a few. The parking facility improvements at 15,000, right above that, there's a line that says Whitford Parks Pavilion.
Give us a page number,
I'm sorry?
a page number.
It's not, I don't have the budget in front of me. What I'm working off of is the annual budget that we did earlier this year. When did that come out? September, I believe? We had it looks like this.
You've got the draft, okay.
Yeah, got
So
the
your
draft.
capital detail.
Yep, correct. So the Jefferson Street docks on page 1 of the draft, we had, and that carried over into the budget, 40,000 for the Jefferson Street docks. As that's an ongoing and expanding project, is that earmarked for that project alone?
That is earmarked to provide another series of slips.
Okay, so expansion.
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. Did we ever come to any conclusions on the police squad car? There was a failed engine. We thought about maybe having the engine replaced.
No,
Trying
sir,
to-
we're in negotiations with the town on a joint services contract, capital is part of the discussion, we've just kind of left that sit and bring it back to you at a later date, whenever.
We make a decision on it.
Right.
So we could really look hard at saving a lot of money from 90,000 if we needed to, potentially, but the 90,000 is earmarked for a new squad car.
Right.
Thank you.
And I concur with Bob, that I think that we should replace the engine and not get a new vehicle.
And again, if the vehicle's beyond its mechanical life, I mean, we should really look at having a good, viable squad car there.
Yes.
So, no question. But we never really ended that conversation. We talked about an engine replacement, we talked about a new squad car, so the clarification is there that if we have to go that route, the money will be in the budget.
Right.
Yeah, and I did see Chief O'Neill walk in just a few minutes ago. Him and I discussed the other day about getting together to get some of these answers.
Okay.
So that will be happening soon.
On page 2 of the draft, which did carry over, for DPW, there's an additional 80,000 for paving equipment. Now, I know we got a paver last year, and we've been working on using it. It looks like it's doing a great job. Is there something new that's being planned for that budget?
Second is skid steer, so right now, the asphalt machine that we have, the skid steer that we've got can't feed asphalt into that thing fast enough, so you have a limit on what you can actually move.
So that's just for the skid steer alone to hook up to the current paver that we bought?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On page 3 of the draft, under the 2026 budget, which carried over, there's a line item that says Whitford Parks Pavilion, 25,000. Was that the Lions Club donation?
Yeah, it's a part of it, we just didn't get to it from a work standpoint this year, so it's rolled over into the next year.
Okay, great, thank you. Parks and facilities improvements 15, there's not really a question there. Let's see, Sidell building improvements, that seems like a straightforward thing. Tell me about the bike path connector at Cornerstone, 42,000. What's being talked about or planned for that?
So you have a whole host of trails that are over by Cornerstone that are not good trails or have not been maintained, so you've got quite a bit of maintenance that needs to take place over there, so those trails are not swampy at various times of the year. One other portion of it is when we did the deal with ProHealth, we recorded recreation access around that front pond. This is providing access to that pond.
And that's in our development agreement with them?
Yes, sir, and recorded on the deed.
Boardwalk connecting Wadowitz to DPW, 60,000. Is that something similar? Are we thinking like a elevated wooden pathway or a
Yes, sir.
bird viewing platform? Or?
You really don't have great bike or pedestrian connectivity throughout the village, and so if you look at where people travel and how people travel, keeping them off of our major roadways, particular County W, makes sense from a traffic planning standpoint. You actually own that entire area back behind DPW and that whole industrial park. Like, you have a huge amount of land that backs all the way up to Wadowitz, and it does nothing in the present.
Okay. And moving down, greenhouse nursery, that's something that I just hadn't caught wind of. What are we planning for that? That's a $50,000 budget line item.
We've looked at how we do more in-house, so ultimately, you have budget constraints. You're gonna hear about some of that from Kevin when he talks about the audit and a fiscal deficit and trying to set DPW up so that DPW can invest in using the land assets that you have in more productive fashion to get the most bang for your buck out of your properties. So right now we go up to a nursery, we purchase that stuff, we pay premium for it rather than using the land that the good Lord bestows sunshine and water on every day, that we could plant trees on and have the growth and maturity and transplant them out somewhere else. Just anything we can in-house, just like with our asphalt stuff, we're looking at how to in-house it and give a dividend back to the community.
Cornerstone Court Pond Pier, so that is kind of part and parcel of the whole
The first piece.
pathway. Is that something that's also written into that development agreement and recorded on the deed?
Yes, sir.
I just don't recall that item as part of that development agreement with ProHealth, but I'm sure that flew past me without picking up on it. When we read that, we did read that development agreement aloud.
There is a recorded recreation access easement, right? So that's part of the development agreement. How you utilize that recreation access easement, that's this. So how do you actually get people to the water across that easement? If you go back to our conference about the recreation plan, when we did our interviews with the middle schoolers and talked about what kind of recreational needs they wanted. Number one on the list was fishing, so staff has been targeting fishing opportunities for access on public waterways ever since.
I can get behind a fishing pier, especially if that budget allowance is correct, that's a really good price, and that would give children in this village an access point to fish, which we have very, very little access to the lake or the river. And then lastly, the last question I have is regarding the library building itself. We're staring down the barrel of $750,000 for improvements. Is that a pie in the sky number, or are there bids to back that up? I know we've talked about taking bids, and we've talked specifically to one contractor a while back and kind of got a range for it. Are we at a point where we're taking publicly?
We have not engineered it, we're not ready to release it for bid. The first part of this is recognize you have an issue and set a number in the budget. Jessica can talk about the value of the collection and what happens if Haddock fails over there, and talk about that for 2 seconds.
The humidity levels within the library have to be within a specific number, and they are currently not. So it is quite urgent on my in my priority list to get this done this year.
Okay, great. That's gotta go through an RFP process, publicly open bids, we've gotta get multiple bids in. There's a lot of people in this area that do that work. I'm sure we can find someone that's economically viable to the tune of a lot less than 750. It just feels like to me, that's a really big number in this budget. And, I'd like to be part of that process too, so as that develops, I'd like to see who we're going to, who we're RFPing, you know, and somehow help value engineer that process down to a number that's reasonable for the taxpayers, cause that's a big number.
The first step after the first of the year is gonna be trying to find a design consultant that can look at actually producing the bid documents. You actually have documents go along with this, so we come pull up for bids.
For roof or just for HVAC?
Both. You're gonna need both. Cause you have to have something that's objective that you can hold the bidders to for a standard, and submit bid bonds and they go along. It's not a-
So, okay, so if that number for consulting fees is less than 25,000, does the consulting fee end of it have to go out for public bid?
Consulting fee is something else entirely. The consulting fee does not have to go out to bid, so that'll go over to the DPW committee. They'll interview various candidates, whoever that would be, to do that design work. They'll make a recommendation back to you guys based on a combination of skills, experience in the industry, and price.
Let me know when that happens, because I have a lot of people in my Rolodex that do exactly that. And if that's something that is under consulting and doesn't require a public bid opening, and we can simply select based on skill, responsiveness, or responsibility, let me know when that process starts, because I'd like to give you some options.
Yeah.
I mean, I really wanna be responsible with $750,000, that's a huge number.
I
And to
appreciate
start, we
your-
need to have it value engineered and not over-engineered, in my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate
All right.
your expertise.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll contact you.
And that's it, that's all the questions I have.
Alright, Mike, can you, not to put you on the spot, can you add to that about, there's kind of almost like a domino effect on how that's gonna have to go? We were talking about,
Oh, the
Yep.
HVAC,
yeah, you're
we
gonna do
wanna-
something and then you don't wanna put a new roof on until that's done. I mean, there's kind of a process to
It's
this.
called critical path, and we need to follow a value engineered critical path,
Yeah.
otherwise we'll be shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, you don't wanna strip off shingles out of a brand new flat roof.
Yep.
Stuff.
Exactly.
And some of the amounts you share with me are not far off from the $700,000 range, so unfortunately.
I had budget bids
Yeah.
from our contractor, HVAC contractor, it's just budget bids, so I mean, at this point, and a roofing contractor, give me a budget bid.
Yeah, this is definitely the right thing for this board to finally do after almost 25 years of doing nothing to that building.
Yeah, we're
Just the facts.
dragging that along, around the roof, four
Yeah,
times
I
a
mean-
week in the summer.
Ensuring million dollars worth of collection there to not even have the humidity at the right point, that's a problem. It's neglect on this board. So,
Right,
thank
Mike,
you for bringing that to our attention, Jessica.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and when that gets started, let's communicate on that often, because I wanna try to help that number come way down.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
sure we can.
Thanks.
Any other questions, Bob?
Nope, I think that's it.
Troy?
Yeah, I would like to talk about, it's actually on our agenda tonight as, number 4, with the Vector sewer cleaner truck. Got some, questions for Rick. If, the cost or the quote came in at $408,213. And then there was a trade-in of 22,500 allowed for what we have now.
Correct.
And that, the vehicle that we have now, what year is that?
2000. No, I'm 99.
Okay. And with that cost of 400,000, how often is that piece of equipment used per year?
It's used monthly for sewer cleaning and maintaining problem areas and manholes. It's used in emergency situations and backed up sewer mains. The bonus of it, just characteristic of the truck is we can use it for hydro excavating. We use that quite often. Put in signposts or anything that we dig around that has utilities, we can use that. The current truck, the pump is out of it, so it's absolutely useless as it sits. So on that trade-in value, we rebuild the pump so that we have something in the meantime until a new truck gets here. They'll include that cost, whatever we put into the truck, they'll add that to the trade-in value.
what, in your best opinion, what would it cost to replace the pump?
They actually got that.
We got that
today.
number.
Yeah. This is worst case scenario. This is a new pump, so ordering a new pump, unbolting one, putting one on, $27,000. But they're going to, they have problems getting a pump right now. They're gonna tear it apart and give us a price on rebuilding the pump.
So if a new pump is $27,000, and has it been replaced before, or is that the original pump on the truck?
Everything is original.
All your rubber, everything on that truck's 25, 26 years old. That's the reason it was coming from. You've got stuff that's gonna start to dry rot and be a problem all over it.
Okay, then I guess my next question is there another community locally within 25, 30 minutes that has that equipment that we could contract with instead of making the capital investment ourselves?
Possibly, I mean, everybody has one, communities. It's, on Christmas Eve, when your relatives are coming over for a party and the sewer's backed up, and you need something there now, now you're calling and waiting, now that's just one house. An hour before another truck gets there, now you have 2 or 3 houses as it goes down the line. That's the main, goal of this truck is for emergency sewer backups.
So the 99 that we have now, what would we have to invest in that truck to make it bulletproof, if you will?
Too much.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at the cost of a $27,000 for a new pump in comparison to $408,000.
Yep.
The truck being used a couple times a month in emergencies, it's a big capital investment. If there's opportunity for us to look to another community to contract with, or even a private business to contract with, to save that $400,000.
I would categorize it sort of as 2 layers, and then we can discuss how you wanna tackle it. Layer number 1 is, hey, this is sort of routine, known maintenance stuff, and we certainly could go out and hire a contractor to deal with routine maintenance stuff. We can get them on a schedule, we can work around it. There's a cost that you're gonna pay over time, and you're gonna pay for the cost of capital, the cost of operating, the cost of interest, the cost of profit, like all the things that are cost captured, right? So over a 20-year time horizon, you're gonna overbuy that truck, but on any one current year, you'll come out ahead. Does that make sense? Okay. That doesn't address emergency operation, which is what Rick's, I think, trying to describe back there, which is we had a lovely lady come before this board approximately 3 years ago whose basement had backed up with sanitary sewer. And she asked you all for approximately a $40,000 reimbursement, and the state of Wisconsin has seen fit to exempt you all as a municipal operator of a utility from liability unless it's a known issue with the system that our staff just failed to contend with. So we ended up moving her from this meeting over to a finance committee meeting. I think 2 different meetings we discussed with her, potential reimbursement of damages that took place in the property. That truck being there, Rick can sort of talk about what the anecdote is around that. It doesn't mean don't just go replace the pump, right? For $27,000 you can stick a new pump in. The question is what fails next, and how would you like Rick to spend his time?
Did I read the quote correct in saying it was 22.5 plus the cost of what we invest in the pump to fix it? So we'll get what, 50 some odd thousand dollars for it in trade? Okay. And then the life expectancy of the new one, again, the other one's at 99, saying we're looking at the same time?
yeah, I would think so.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to piggyback off Troy, given what we were talking about in finance, and our deficit we're looking with EMS, that $400,000 pretty much balances us out if we just fix the pump.
So there are, to different funds and.
Oh, I'm in the wrong fund.
Yeah, so this is a sewer
Gotcha.
fund related only, yeah.
I got you. So it's coming from the sewer fund, which is actually doing very well for itself.
Right, and it has nothing to do with the taxpayers.
So, based off the sewer funds and finance, we do have money to take care of it, cause I was on board with you, but based off of finance and how well we are doing on that end of it, it makes sense.
One last question for Rick. If we did put the new motor on it, could we get another year to 2 years out of it?
You might, yeah, you'll get that out of the pump, I can't say, so there's the water pump, that's what's flowing. There's vacuum pump, so, if you chase let's say a root ball down the sewer, you don't have the vacuum to suck it up, it's just gonna keep going. That vacuum pump is the same age as
Same
the
age
pump
and
that
wear.
just blew. So
What's that?
it's just,
It's the same age and wear
Yeah.
as the hydraulic pump.
Okay, thank you. Any other budget questions, Troy? I do not.
Ellie?
Okay, from here.
Andy?
I'm just thinking about Fire Station 1.
That's included in the budget in the TIF district.
Alright. Is everyone comfortable with Fire Station 1?
You know, again, it goes back to all the other things we talked about. Fire Station 1, we have $1 million apportioned in the budget for that renovation of that space to hopefully find an operator that'll run it and pay us. That's the goal. If it were my decision alone, the way I would approach Fire Station 1 is I would gray box the space for way less than that, and I would allow the operator to do the build-out cost. I would not fit out that station to be restaurant ready at a cost of $1 million or more, in hopes that we could bring an operator in that's a Class A operator that's gonna manage that space the way the village sees it.
You have latitude within the budget to do exactly that. We haven't brought this up for like detailed discussion yet, right?
Exactly.
That's coming, so this is effectively a placeholder to say, hey, we've analyzed what the worst case scenario is for this thing, where do we wanna go from here?
Is the TID solvent enough to do this within the TID without a borrow?
I think you should ask that question the other way around, which is the TID solvent enough if you don't do this?
I see that
Does
side
that
of
make
it,
sense?
yes.
Right, so like
Correct.
you have a challenge that when you all pulled the trigger on the loss number 2 project, you predicated it upon the development agreement being there with Mobcraft and Mobcraft completing it. And the only way that you did loss number 2 was because you had a development agreement enticement from fire station number 1. But without being able to get fire station number 1 to the finish line, loss number 2 is effectively upside down. So those 2 projects were balanced in symbiosis based on the credit that Todd Hutchinson asked you for. So somehow or another, either you're going to need to take general fund assets and move them into district number 4, or you need that building to get up and paying taxes and the lease back to you to make up for other lost revenue. One of the 2.
I actually like your strategy of gray boxing and see how that goes. Worst case scenario, we go to what we planned.
Yeah.
I think that's the strategy. If the board is in agreement, I could be on board with that.
You can be on board with leaving $1 million in the budget as a placeholder for a question mark?
Correct. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Bob, you can value engineer it through that process, though.
Well, I think it's gonna take someone that really wants to sharpen the pencil before we lay that at the feet of the TID and by extension the taxpayers.
We need to run a pro forma on this.
We'll
When you
have
do a
to.
market analysis, there's 15 steps between now and actually getting to the point that somebody's over there doing construction.
I understand. My fear is that we'll have to borrow to do this, and I don't think that that's a very smart move. And so a placeholder for $1 million that doesn't get spent, I'm okay with. But $1 million is a placeholder that does get spent to the tune of $999,999. is not something I'm comfortable with, in hopes that a Class A operator will tie themselves to that building and operate it in the fashion that we need them to. Which, I mean, just simple math tells me that that operator's gonna have to run that place with a nut of $15,000 to $20,000 every single month. That's a tough ask.
Yeah, so it's $100K a year lease impact of over 5 months.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that just justified my simple math. I love the idea. I just don't wanna see pie in the sky ideas collapse at the feet of the TID, which is meant to be autonomous within itself, or by extension the taxpayers. That's not responsible, not of this board or any other. So a placeholder budget of $1 million that doesn't get spent means the money stays in the budget as a placeholder. And when time comes to do any kind of detailed renovation on that building on behalf of the village, to try and own and hold and rent, I gotta be involved. I mean, I have to be involved. It has to be responsibly spent money. It has to be value engineered to the T. Because if it isn't, that could be the worst mistake we've ever made. So,
One of them.
let's proceed with caution. I'm in favor of a placeholder, but when the details start to get sussed out, I would like to be a part of that discussion.
I agree with Bob. You know, for the village to take on a project like that and do a complete build out, you could have 10 different operators come in and have 10 different visions. We go through and do the build out, and then a different vision comes in, and we're behind the 8 ball again with knocking down or doing, redoing what we have already done. I completely agree.
I don't really think that any money would be spent from the village on behalf of any operator until there was an operations agreement in place that had a pro forma behind it that we could all get behind. Do I think it's the right amount of money to build out that place into something viable for an operator to move into and hang a shingle on the front and run it? Sure. Barely. But when that time comes and that RFP goes out and we get answers back, the value engineering side of it to save the taxpayers is something that I need to be a part of that discussion in great detail.
I think to both your points, the gray box even enables whoever comes in to do their vision, and we're not making a vision. And I think if you have that partnership where we gray box it, it's more attractive to an investor to make their vision. And I think that opens up the marketing to a lot more business entrepreneurs.
100% agree. But tonight, this board is tasked with approving this budget, as written.
As long as we're all in agreement, and Adam's finance chair, is that money's there, that money can be rolled over into the next budget, or however. But to your point, you definitely need to be involved based off your construction experience. So, doesn't mean, we can allocate it, doesn't mean we spend it.
Isn't that kind of where we're at? This is just a placeholder to get this process started. I mean, we haven't even,
Well, it was kind of, I don't know, honestly, it was kind of like, we were gonna build it out, I mean, from my, and I could be wrong, but from my understanding of finance, we were gonna build it out and give that, it was gonna be like, just turnkey. And I don't think turnkey is necessarily the way to go. I think doing a gray box and letting an investor come in and we facilitate and help them get, make that space great, but let their vision go.
Well, just because that conversation was had in finance, it still has to come
Well, that's
before
why-
this board and
That's why I
before
brought it
it
up.
and through.
That's exactly why I brought it up.
I'm good with whatever the board sees fit. I'm for approving it as is and starting the process. Doesn't mean we have to spend the money. We can adjust and go to the gray box. We can come back with your expertise in all this. Maybe we can do something different we don't even know about. I don't know.
We definitely need to start.
But that's where I was getting at
Yes.
with this is whether we come back as a board and say, this is not the thing we wanna do, and we figure out what we do with that money after the fact, or how that's reallocated somewhere else. Everything else that is attempted to go on there has been a dramatic failure. And I don't know what else this board wants to continue to do other than waste time without trying to attempt something.
I agree,
Because
we
the
have to try.
public, putting it out to the public and trying to incentivize the public has not done anything. And thankfully to Zeke and the agreements, you know, Todd approving and everything we did, the last one, at least we were made whole, the taxpayer was made whole by the money that we got for that deal. But again, here we are, how many years later, there it sits, nothing is happening. I came onto this board listening to all of you talk about the gem of the community, it's not gem. So unless we attempt something, or we go back to square one and say, we throw it back to the public again, I don't know where that'll go. The conversation Zeke and I have had with people who call about that property, it won't be a gem. You can go pick up tires for your truck if you want.
Yep.
You can go do those type of things. If that's what we want that property to be, maybe this board needs to change their mind, and it is, I don't know. But if the money is there.
1.1 for a vision that we don't know what it is, I'd rather gray box it and give that vision to an investor. And I
I'm
think
not
that's-
against gray box.
I think that's what we do.
I'm up for
We
whatever.
allocate it, it sits there, and we make it, we do it smart. We shouldn't be the ones making someone's vision. What we do is we make it where they can make their vision.
Well, that's a discussion to be had.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Tonight, we're approving a budget that has $1 million
So we-
allocated in it for a question mark. And I think that gives me a lot of hope, and I wanna start racing towards the finish line with that building and get it marketed and get it operated and have it be what our vision, whatever vision might come from an operator, but the critical path there is going to be finding an operator that's interested in taking our incentive
Exactly.
and turning it into something that's
And
better.
I don't think it has to be 1.1, but we can allocate it, and we can always save it. So that's where I'm at, but I think, I brought it up because I wanted everyone to be on board in that, because I don't think we should be making the vision, I think we do the gray box and we let the entrepreneur run with their vision, with their investment. I think if we try to build something, from our philosophy, I don't think it just works, I don't know, in my business side, it doesn't work.
That would be irresponsible
Yes,
of us as a board to do that.
yes, but I think we can still allocate it, as long as everyone on here agrees that we don't have to spend it all, but it's there to make it work. And that's where I'm at, and I'm cool with that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the 2026 budget, or anything else anybody wants to get out there before I ask for an approval, a motion to approve?
Adam, could I ask that you just go through a quick overview of, overall budget and what, increases, tax rate, all, just a quick overview snapshot? Or Zeke?
Yeah, I don't have it memorized,
So, go to page 9 in your packets, you can kind of see all of it in summary form. So the columns at the top from 2026 on over to the right represent different funds that you have, and then that's broken down by revenue and expenditures according to funds. So if you play kind of connect the dots or battleship, if you were, dial in on the different column and row, you can see where everything sits. High level overview, your utilities are continuing to perform well. You have growth within your ratepayer community. You do have a base rate increase of $11.34 per quarter, worked into the overall budget. You also have a 3% increase in water rates that was recommended by the PSC. You haven't taken a rate increase on water in a number of years. And you have a $2.4 million well project going in right now. So that is a well project that was identified by the DNR 15 plus years ago based on low levels of radioactive product in the need for clean water treatment. So this is step number 1 of the project, which is drill the well so you have capacity. Step number 2 is attach a water treatment plant, or expand the existing water treatment plant, is probably a better way to describe it. So that will be another $1 million+ project that you will have to tackle in 2026, 2027, we'll see how far along we go with the engineering. You have funds allocated to redo East Main. That does not include anything for line burials. That's a TID eligible item. Your TID districts are, set up to perform within TID district number 3, continue to see growth. If you look at the debt service account, you'll see 5 years beginning in 2035 that you have some additional payments you need to make. So it's important that we develop the lot to the south of Spanky's and the other remaining lots, just not leave those sit vacant. And in TID number 4, it's important that you do the fire station number 1 project in some form or fashion so that you can maintain solvency within TID number 4. All of the obligations you have in TID number 3 and TID number 4 are general obligations, meaning that if those investments fail to perform or do not reach a level that debt service payments can be made, you've got to go to the general public and raise taxes in order to make that whole. That's some years out. You have room to run and both the benefit of inflation and vacant land that can be developed. The market is always changing, so I would encourage you to act expediently on projects and not delay on them. We have in the past discussed some projects that make sense on day number 1 that we're talking about them, and then the market moves, interest rates move, construction costs move, and the window of opportunity closes. So just because we talked about something one day doesn't mean that that opportunity stays around for forever. And an example of that would be multifamily development. Once upon a time, everybody was knocking on our door to do as much multifamily development as we probably could have wanted. And I've talked to the 4 major multifamily developers within our marketplace, and they've all taken a very polite pass because the national multifamily delinquency rate of mortgage-backed securities, I believe, is 10.68%, which puts it on par with like 2013. So that's a real challenge. The headwinds that you have within the budget are your budget is balanced based on a combination of transfers from utilities, transfers from TIDs, which have their own revenue needs, and then interest income. So interest rates are dropping. You've got $140,000 budgeted in your general fund for interest income. I think that's probably a reasonable number for this year, but that doesn't mean it's a reasonable number to expect next year. So funding demands for all your different departments and what they're looking for will come under increasing strain as the interest rate environment declines. And you have an interfacilities fund that is not performing, so you've got, what's called a $300,000-ish unfunded liability sitting in that one that you'll have to address at some point.
But that's changing, right?
No, sir.
Didn't we change that strategy out of their facility?
I would tell you that Dalton Brand has given it his all, and that's the time we talked last week. I think Dalton is probably ready to tap out on that. We've done 500 facilities transports in the last 90 days. We have reached out to ProHealth every week, every other week, both Dalton and I, depending on which week we're talking about, just to get a response and meeting with someone. We haven't had a meeting with anyone since February, and they just don't get back in touch with us. So we've talked to everybody there is to talk to within ProHealth, and what occurred in the past where this board was not notified of a change in medical director really has damaged that relationship to a point that I don't believe it's salvageable. Otherwise they would have contacted us back. So you took a $360,000 a year revenue stream, and both Dalton and I have worked on it. We've been unsuccessful in getting it back. So right now, with discussion on the finance committee, you have frozen some of the EMS positions. Rachel and I make up your second out ambulance, and that's what you have available. So good news is your revenue's up roughly $150,000 a year. Bad news is you don't have indefinite funding to just run a deficit.
So you guys are just calling, you haven't shown up there, trying to do a pure sales.
We have
From a
done
sales
both.
per- you just
We have
show up there
emailed,
and knock
we
on
have
the door.
called, we have dropped off things at nurses stations, we have talked to nurses, we have talked to directors, we've talked to vice presidents, we have talked and talked and talked.
And it's your firm belief that because the medical director changed, that quashed the opportunity for us to move forward with interfacilities transport?
Aurora never provided much in terms of transport, and that goes up and down. ProHealth has a contract with a number of other parties, and we would be lower down on the list for a callback. But at this point, we can't even get an authorization from them to be able to take patients out of their administration. So the calls that we have gotten have been done based on pre-existing agreement, not recent authorization or update of the fee structure. So I think that was, to Andy's point, us going to the nurses and saying, hey, if you get a call, call us, and they call, and then somebody in admin goes, what are you doing? We don't have things set up with the Village of Waterford to do that.
Can you do a loss lead?
We stop, they actually asked us to stop calling.
But could you do a loss lead?
I've explained to them at different levels, we are a price taker, not a price setter at this point.
But you know what I'm talking about, like.
Yes, sir.
We'll run it for free for a while until you like our services and.
I don't think that is of interest. And I don't think you can do that anyway when you're taking a loss as is.
Well,
I don't
but you gotta get
think
your foot in the door again.
you're going to have to make changes within your EMS system, in order to bring your budget in line. You do not have to do that this year. You can do that slowly over time.
And then, you know, we've had discussions this summer at the board about interest payments or debt service payments on the TIDs. The year is 2036, I believe, 2035, that unless these TIDs are fully built through, in 10 years from today, we're gonna be paying debt service on
$1 million each year for 5 years, so 50% tax increase.
$5.3 million. That comes two ways. More development, or on the heels of taxpayers.
Or revenue.
Which is more development.
We're not gonna increase our revenue unless we have more doors to tax. So, we need to keep that squarely in focus as we make this decision tonight, because if we're not economically development-minded board members, we're not gonna do this community any service whatsoever. So it's gotta be foot on the gas pedal to get these TIDs full, completed, and complete what we started in 2018. It's not 2025. We've done a great amount of work since we started, an incredible amount of work. $68 million in net new construction total. That's outstanding. There's not a lot of communities this size in this state that can hold a candle to that effort. So if we're not economically development-minded board members moving forward, us or even the next members that take our places, we're gonna have a big giant debt service to pay. And if we let go of that and focus on other things, we're gonna create a situation where no one's gonna be happy. And that wasn't the legacy we started out with. So, we've got some ground to cover. It's not a lot, but we're gonna be paying out $1 million in debt service a year by 2035. So, as new things develop, and as new development agreements come up, and as new opportunities come up, we need to be very focused on making those things happen through incentive of some type. The incentives that we originally started out with in our kids waned to become now favored only for arm's length transactions at retail cost. Initially, the incentives that we offered spurred on a lot of development. And we've done a great job so far. You can't let off the gas pedal with that.
But to summarize, the taxes, did the mill rate go up or did the mill rate go down?
Your mill rate goes up on net new construction, but the impact on your existing taxpayers is completely dependent upon their neighborhood and what they've done to their homes. You'll have some homeowners that have a slight decrease, other homeowners that have a slight increase, but the net impact is there's no change. You also had TID District number 2 roll off of your tax rolls this year, so taxes effectively go up for that, but those are properties that we're paying money into a TID, not to your general tax fund.
We're flat.
Yeah, it's another way to say it.
The taxes did not go up.
Yeah, we've not raised taxes on the existing taxpayer a single time since I've been here. Your debt service remains steady at $595,000. Your biggest challenges are interest income and deficit within your EMS operations. Kevin's gonna talk to you about that when he talks about the audit, just like he did with the finance committee.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Alright. We have a motion, do we have a second? I'll make the second. Having a second, do we have any more discussion, questions? Anything else? Before we gotta vote. Alright, hearing none, Rachel, can we please have a roll call vote?
Nash,
Aye.
Colnell, Jaskey,
Aye.
McReynolds,
Aye.
Dunham,
I,
Ewert.
Aye.
Alright, thank you, Rachel. The 2026 budget has been approved.